Kurt, another week, another PBT Extra. I'm thrilled. How was your weekend? How are you doing generally?
I'm doing really well. I did something this weekend that I think you would have enjoyed. My wife studied abroad in Scotland, and we have some Scottish friends, so we threw a burn supper.
Wow, I don't know what that is. What is that?
It is a Scottish festival celebrating the birthday of Scottish poet Robert Burns, who most
What?
of you would know. He wrote songs and poetry. The song you would know is "Old Lang Syne."
Wow, yeah, of course.
He
Wow.
is the Scottish national poet. So we cooked Scottish food and drank whist scotch and read his poetry is all in the native Scottish tongue, the Old English Scottish tongue, which makes it just brutally impossible to read. But we had a blast. Drank a bunch of whiskey. Actually had haggis and edible food, and had a blast.
Wow, it's just New Year's Eve. It was just New Year's Eve in the middle of January again. You're just like, okay, let's do this all over
Do it again.
What is haggis?
You can't buy original haggis in America. Let's put it that way. You can't buy the real stuff. In olden times, it would have been essentially what we would call the offal, the leftover parts of the animal, cooked with oats in a sheep's bladder. You can't get that exactly here, but you can get like minced meat with oats and a kind of. It's still not that good. It's still like that's one of those things. Like it's the Scottish national food. If you ever go to Scotland and see people eating it, they're tourists. Like nobody there actually eats that.
Huh. Okay, I feel like that's the most interesting weekend we've had. You know,
I don't know. We're just in London, so I don't think that's true.
Yeah, I mean, but that's a good one. Wow. Okay.
What do you
You set the bar really high. I did not do that. I did not have haggis. I will say, what did I do this weekend? I did something interesting. No, I just think I'm back to my old ways. And I just went back to the mat. I just went and looked at art and stuff and watched basketball. You know what I am really fascinated with this one corner of the Met right now because the Met is so large. I don't know if you've been there recently, but it's huge. So what I learned was I kind of just pick like basically 30 minutes. Imagine it like a work coffee break. I kind of just pick like 30 minutes and I just pick a section of the museum. And this could work for any museum in theory. It could work for LACMA for you out in LA or whatever, the road. I just pick one section. So like recently I've been spending a lot of time in the South Indian section. I've been spending a lot of time. There's this Ganesha show right now at the Met. And I've kind of just been hanging out in that section, just kind of like studying just different sculptures. And it's been really fascinating. I've been learning a lot. So, and there's also this one little area. I'm not going to disclose where it is in the Met because it's my little reading nook, but I like to go there and just read. So I'll just like go look at like some sculptures of Ganesha, and then I'll go over to this area of the Met and then just like read a book. So like, recently I've been trying to read like The Great Learning, like all these like Confucius books and stuff and like ancient Chinese literature. And I just go to this little section and I just like read for like an hour and then go home.
Wow. Actually, no, I knew my mother is a docent at the Getty.
Wow.
And she like will stay out. She'll either get there early or stay late and just read in the beautiful gardens and outdoor spaces they have there.
It's the best place to read. I mean, like I could read in my apartment in Queens, or I could read at the Met. You kidding me? Like it's not even. I'm a member, so I'm not a docent like your mom, which by the way is very cool. I mean, that's like a whole different level of like commitment to the arts. That's awesome. But yeah, but like to just go read, I just go hang out at like these museums, like the Whitney, the Met, MoMA. I'll just like go there and then just like answer emails or like read or like just like hang out. It's a beautiful place to just spend time.
Yes.
But anyway,
it beats my living room. Yes.
But anyways, in LA, we mentioned the Getty. Let's just go ahead and just move there in our basketball conversation as well. Rui Hachimura is now a Laker. This is an interesting move. So the Lakers traded three future second round picks, and Kendrick Nunn to acquire Rui Hachimura, who was the 9th overall pick of the 2019 draft. What are your thoughts on this move? Did they get better?
Yeah, a little bit, just because the Lakers don't have anyone like him. Like their supporting cast is struggling, and they don't have a 6'8" guy who's kind of good at catch and shoot threes. Even though Hachimura is not necessarily a great defender, doesn't really create his own shot. Like he's a nice look. He's probably going to get a league average salary, around 10 million this offseason when he's a free agent. That's kind of to me, that's kind of where he is. But for the Lakers, he kind of fills a need. Like he might even be starting in a few weeks. It wouldn't be shocking just because, Corey, they don't have anybody like that. And if you put a guy who can somebody hits some catch and shoot threes next to LeBron James, and suddenly that looks just really great in Los Angeles, doesn't it?
Yeah, we think about Luka all the time. Well, Luka needs catch and shoot people around him, right? And it's the same. I mean, Luka modeled his game. He was watching LeBron growing up, and they have very similar, as far as just size and skill set. So it makes sense as well that LeBron needs shooters around him. Yeah, I think I agree with you, though. I don't know how much better they get. I think they do move forward, but once again, I mean, what is the goal? Is the goal to win a championship? This move will not get you a championship. No. But as far as a marginal increase for the rest of the season, I think it's a good ad. I do think it is very pricey. I mean, first, my personal opinion. I mean, I understand. Like, we're looking at his averages right now: 13 points, 4.3 rebounds, 1.2 assists, 33.7% from three, and he's shooting just a hair under 50% from the floor at 48.8%. Look, I mean, three second round picks and Kendrick Nunn for that type of production, I think is expensive. But I mean, I guess if you're the Lakers, anything is a move forward. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of where they are. They had to do something. When I did my winners and losers column at NBC Sports, I said the winner was the Lakers front office. The Lakers get better, like I said, but what the front office is, hey, we're doing something. Right? Like, hey, look, we're making a move that's a now move. We're giving up picks for a guy who's young and athletic and can help us. So you can sell that to unhappy fans or LeBron, frankly, and say, hey, we're trying something, but they don't give up the first round picks. They don't give up anything substantial that they can, move forward. It tweaks their cap space situation in the offseason a little, but like it's a movable thing. You know what makes them better, Corey? They get Anthony Davis back.
Yeah,
that starts tonight, and getting Anthony Davis back, Wednesday night, Anthony Davis returns. That's what makes them better.
Yeah, I mean, this is I feel like we're always talking with the Lakers. It's kind of like what you mentioned, right? It's like what's it called? A red herring. Yeah, and everyone's like, look over here, look what we're doing with Russell Westbrook, look what we're doing with Rui Hachimura. When the reality is, the bread and butter of the Lakers is Anthony Davis being healthy. And LeBron can put up 40 plus points, 46 right recently. But the reality is that they're still bad, and that's kind of like at this point. I wonder, just like all this extra stuff around, the actual main course. Like, it's great that you have this dessert or these cookies, but I'm still hungry. Like, I still need an entree.
They last night, Tuesday night, was a kind of perfect example against the Clippers. LeBron scored 46 and was again brilliant. Clippers scored 77 in the first half, blew their doors off and ran away. They're just not that good a team. Anthony Davis coming back helps. Starting Wednesday, nice. Sorry to say this, soft landing spot for a return against the Spurs. You put Hachimura in the starting lineup or in the rotation at least, and you get better. The advantage they have is, Corey, the West is outside of Denver and Memphis at the top. It's all tightly compacted. Like, you get hot for a couple of weeks and suddenly things look better.
Yes, I will say this about Hachimura as well, though. I was just watching, speaking of the Spurs, this whole Ring of the Rowell series that they're doing, documenting the history of the Spurs. And one thing I thought was fascinating with George Gervin when he was playing for the Virginia Squires, by the way, with Dr. J.
Oh, that would have been fun. Now I want video of that. Like, that's some athletic.
Could you imagine that team? Let's just back up for a second. Like George Gervin and Dr. J playing together. That probably would have been like the most fun basketball to watch, right? At that time. That's crazy. But anyways, the Spurs wanted Dr. J. The Spurs wanted George Gervin. And apparently they came to some sort of verbal agreement with the Virginia Squires. And then George Gervin went on a tear, like averaging like 28 or 30 points the next 4 games. And then the deal was like, okay, we need more for him. Right. And then, whatever, all this stuff happened, we're fast forwarding. It's just Corey Spark notes. The Spurs got George Gervin. But it kind of reminds me of like Hachimura, where like he just dropped 30. It's like the concept of like, okay, we're approaching the trade deadline. His average is at 13 points and 4 rebounds. it's okay. Like you said, league average, like he can get you better, especially if you're kind of swapping out Kendrick Nunn and some future picks, second round picks. But then he goes on this tear, drops 30, right? And it's like, okay, now we understand what we could be getting. And you realize once again with the NBA that like at any point, any one of these guys can drop 30.
Yeah.
But the question is, can they help your team take that step? But I thought that was an interesting kind of, past and present kind of thing.
Yeah. If you're not LeBron James, it's so much, or George Gervin, if you're not a star, like it does so much come down to fit for role players. And maybe Hachimura's fit is better here than the very crowded front court in Washington. I'm, by the way, from Washington's end of this, I don't know, it's fine. Like I still don't know quite what they're doing. So they free up some money. They are going hard at Kyle Kuzma this summer.
Let's move to Orlando.
Yeah.
This is the first time I think we may have talked about Orlando since they got to 0. So this is very exciting. I'm excited to give them a little spotlight on the podcast. Yes. Jonathan Isaac, last game he played in was in the bubble in 2020, which is just a hard concept. Dealt with injuries, finally made his debut back, and he subbed in on just a single sub. The entire arena gave him a standing ovation, and in 10 minutes he had 10 points. First half he was 2 for 5, but then the second time he's on a strict minutes restriction, obviously after 2.5 years with injuries. And he had a very fruitful second half appearance. Started to say he felt more comfortable. What did you take away from his debut?
Just first off, the perseverance it takes when you've had an injury and then a setback from that injury in 2.5 years. I mean, he got paid. He could have coasted. He chose not. He fought to get back to this point, to get back on the floor. So I think that part of the story is great. This is a fun, exciting story, and we'll see how he fits. He was way pre-Banchero and everybody else. He was early on like, this guy could be the face of the team. This could be our next star. But he was a defensive force who could finish around the rim a little, and his offensive game was really raw. Well, now he's not going to be asked to generate offense the same way. Not with Banchero there, not with Franz Wagner there. Like he's even, some of the other guards they've got, Markelle Fultz and stuff. They've got some people who can do a little creation. So if he just defends and finishes, he actually could fit really well with them once he kind of gets, if he can just stay healthy and get his legs under him, like there might be a real fit there.
Yes, and he knocked down a couple of threes as well, so just kind of from stretching the floor, big man. And he added 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals in his debut. Yeah, I think for me, when I look at this, let's just kind of back out from playing to more of an athlete perspective, just mentally. I always remember growing up, my dad would always tell me, like, when you get to this level, the NBA, the difference between, good and great is all here, right? Like, because everyone's talented. You're like one of the best athletes in the world. But the difference is, how do you approach the game, the mentality, So I think this is a fascinating, when you hear his comments, it's fascinating to see, like, the 2 words that he brought out were peace and relief. So when you have 2.5 years of injuries, I mean, I don't know if you've ever tweaked an ankle or, played pickup.
Yeah, nothing on this level. Yeah.
But even just going to rehab, like just for a small injury for a couple months is exhausting, right? Like, because you have a full-time job, you're trying to go to rehab in the morning or during your lunch break or whatever, and you're just frustrated. You're like, why can't this thing just heal, right? Imagine being like one of the top athletes in the world, and this is what you do, and this is what you feel like you were born to do. And that level of frustration just is compounded, right? Especially over 2.5 years. And then the big word in the NBA is the C word, confidence. And if you don't have any confidence, you can't play at that level. Because once again, it's all here. You can't be great. You can't be good if you don't have confidence. So I do think that this is a good sign for Orlando that he's playing, that second half at least with confidence, and he has relief and peace. I think that's a good thing for them.
Yeah, and he's not being thrown into a situation with too much pressure yet, right? Like, Orlando's still a rebuilding team that's going to have a big high draft pick again this year. They're not out there, it's tougher to make those comebacks if you are, I don't know, on Milwaukee or Boston or somebody, Denver right now, where the commitment, and when Denver's dealing with that, obviously, with Murray and Porter Jr., but like the pressure is very different. Here, it's like, hey, take your time. We are not in a rush. Get yourself right, which is great. So
back in the bubble, the team, I think, you looked at so many different iterations of this Magic team. You had Markelle Fultz, Mo Bamba, and Jonathan Isaac, and that's basically the only player left.
But they've made smart moves. They got your guy Bol Bol
Yes.
they've given him a
Big fan
role.
of Bobo. I like Bobo a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, they made smart moves, right? They drafted Boncaro. Wagner's playing well for them. But I will say this though, this is my issue with Orlando, Kurt. We always like to go reach into the past. The past 30 years have the Magic organization, made good decisions regarding their franchise players. I think the historic answer is probably not. When you think about Dwight Howard, Shaq, and Penny Hardaway, I mean, whenever they've gotten people, it's just like, or Aaron Gordon recently, who found a nice role with Denver, now the top team, and so I don't think that they've done a good job of. Yes, they can acquire and they can identify, which it's two of the hardest things to do in professional sports is identify talent and acquire talent. Great, but can you build around that and retain talent? I mean, that's like very few great companies, have figured that one out. They lose all their talent to everybody else, and I think the Magic. I mean, Boncaro is like he's kind of like I'm not gonna say he's the real deal yet. It's very early, but I mean, he's playing.
He looks like he very much could be though, doesn't he?
Could be, yeah. He looks like his game is perfect for the NBA, and that's like a really exciting prospect for this Orlando team that who's floundered as far as figuring out who that franchise player is.
Yeah, and look, while we're in Orlando, it's time to turn on Corey's jukebox because I think that you're taking that to Orlando.
Yeah, I mean, Orlando's getting a lot of time.
It's a good time. You know what? If you're going to be in Orlando, late January, early February is the time to be there, right?
I guess you're right. Wasn't the Premier League just there too for their fan fest at Universal?
Yes, NBC was just there for. I mean, they were promoting Arsenal and not the good team Newcastle, but yeah, they were down there promoting, doing stuff at the
parks.
at the Universal Park down there. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're right. Maybe this is just like the symphony, the synergy of all the NBC properties. We're just all going to Orlando right now. But yeah, so all I ask of you is one of my favorite songs, I think, at the current moment, because it's hard to say favorite song of all time. It's different seasons of life. But right now, all I ask of you it's from Phantom of the Opera. The version, because there are different versions, the version we're choosing for Corey's Jukebox today is by Sarah Brightman and Steve Barton and the original London cast of the Phantom of the Opera. It's a beautiful version. Beautiful. Yeah. But this is one of my favorite songs. What?
Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Yes. I mean, super talented. He wrote this. I mean, anyway, I'm not going to get into the details of how this came about, but I mean, really, really great opera. A great musical. So this song is one of my favorite songs right now. And I think it perfectly encapsulates or captures rather what Orlando's kind of going through, this moment of hopefulness in the midst of darkness, right? I mean, you think, as I mentioned, not only the injuries, but then losing your franchise player in Aaron Gordon, just trying to understand, well, where are we going from here? That's the darkness that Orlando has been mired in. And then finally, you get Boncaro, who's looking like he could evolve into like a really, really good player, which is exciting, right? Then you have your injured players coming back and accepting roles, right? And having the right mindset around that. Great. You have role players stepping up and maturing as players. Great. It seems as though they're starting to kind of see light, for the first time in many years. And that's what this song is all about, right? It's like, let me be your freedom, let me be your light, right? And that's kind of like what the guy is singing to the girl in this song. And she's like, all I want is day without night, right? That's kind of like all I want. And that's kind of what the Orlando Magic is like. All I want, right? For Paulo Boncaro is just like freedom, security, light, and peace, and everybody there. So it looks like they're experiencing that briefly, or at least have the opportunity to pursue.
I think they do. It's funny. I have heard from front office people thinking they're winning more than I thought they would. If I were them, I'd try to back they're hurting their draft pick opportunities because these guys are coming along a lot faster than they thought. And it's a weird line to walk. So I think they're handling it pretty well. They've developed talent, but I'm with you. Boncaro, he's a rookie. We're only going to go so far down that road, but he looks like the kind of franchise cornerstone, potential top 10 player that you have to have if you really want to contend in the NBA. And there is good reason for hope down there.
Yeah, and the music too. I think. Yeah. When I think about like this song, there's also a reprise version which immediately follows this song. If you know the movie and musical, which is sung by the Phantom, which is basically like I gave you my music. You know, I made your song take wing, and now this is how you repay me. You know, deny me and betray me. So there is this element here of yes, hope, but the same song, the same melody with this ominous undertone. And I do feel like that also exists very much so in Orlando, given the history that we discussed, where they're not very good at retaining talent, good at identifying it, good at acquiring it. But there is that element where I feel like Banchero could deny and betray them and then go be somewhere else, like Aaron Gordon, and then go be at the top team somewhere else. So it is.
I hope not for their sake, but yeah, it is Orlando.
Yeah, it is Orlando. So that's the jukebox. I only did one this time because I just wanted to focus there. And then also, I think with the All I Ask of You, it's a very simple premise. It's like, well, you know, the song once again is about, you know, loving someone and being loved in return. That's like with the whole basic premise of the song. And that's all that the person asks of the other person, that their lover. I feel like at the same time with this NBA team, it's kind of like that, right? Like all I ask of you is like accept your role, do your job, right? And like we don't need to be like, and no one needs to be a superstar. And I think Jonathan Isaac returning is a perfect example of that. Like you said, just defend, do your job, make some open shots, stretch the floor, and like we improve greatly. You know, like, and I think that's what this young team just needs is we don't need superstars, just do your job. That's all I ask of you.
I don't you sell. I mean, I think all you ask as a fan is a team that plays hard, tries, and doesn't squander its opportunities. And when you're Orlando, just, hey, if I see these young kids going out and getting better and playing hard, then that's what I'm asking as a fan, isn't it? I want to be sold hope. And this is that is a very hopeful song. But you're right. The best part of that is that the fandom comes in and tweaks, we'll say, the story with the song with a darker undertone.
Yeah.
That, you know, I don't think we need to remind Magic fans exists.
Yeah. And yeah, don't watch the rest of the musical. It doesn't go well. So let's go to.
Don't stand under the chandelier. You're good.
I knew you were going to bring that up. Let's go to the NBA All-Star voting, shall we? It's different this year, and this is fascinating. We're so used in recent years to so many different tweaks in the program.
Yeah, trying to make the game interesting.
And then now, you know, in recent years, it's been they go on television and they do a live draft, right? And then this year, it's different. What's different this year, Kurt?
They are going to do the draft live on the court before the game, which means you are going to get named. Let's just pick random guy we know is going to make the team. Jason Tatum gets named an all-star. Will go to Salt Lake City, not knowing what team he's going to be on for the game. Going through practice, by the way, they're not picking the teams until Sunday, right before the game, which means he's got to go. I'm not sure what the Saturday practices look like that they're going to have. The coaches, who's coaching who gets, anyway. Like you can't install. They don't really install plays much anyway, but like, what are you doing in this practice? Sunday, they're going to pick the captains, the two captains, which are probably, look, it'll be LeBron as one of them again. And by the way, 5-0 as captain. He has yet to lose. And Giannis Antetokounmpo, probably, maybe Kevin Durant catches him for that other spot. They're going to pick these players live on the court and then basically start the game. You know, it's going to be interesting.
What is your initial reaction when you hear this new plan?
I know the NHL did this basically a couple years ago, and I don't know. They're trying so hard to make the actual All-Star game interesting, Corey. The only thing that's even given it a modicum of worked kind of well is putting the they don't call it the Elam ending, which is the name everybody else is using. It's the target score ending where you're just trying to get to a target score. That's had some pop, I guess, but it's hard to make that game interesting to me. So I'm willing to try anything, I guess. I'm reserving judgment on this, but you shake up the teams however you want. I am going to look forward to, like, we'll see who they are, but like, who's the last guy picked? Because it's one thing to do it when it's on TNT and it's just names on a board. And it's another thing when like Trae Young is physically sitting there and nobody's picking him or whoever it is, right?
Yeah. It kind of is like the playground mentality. You know,
Yeah,
where you go to the
exactly.
playground, it's like, hey, we got our captains. LeBron's like, yep, you. And then KD or Giannis is like, yep, you. It's like,
Yeah,
I want you. So I do feel like this goes back to the roots of basketball, which is like playground
it's a
ball, you
little
know?
street ball, yeah,
Yeah, so I do think that is great. I do think this idea of trying to make practice competitive because it's essentially a tryout. You know, like so that's kind of like what it is as far as like, okay, well, yeah, we're all stars, but like if you want to start, like you got to earn the starting job, and like you're being evaluated at practice before the actual game, and and also the whole pride element of like, okay, well, I don't want to be the last guy picked, and
yeah,
this can be on TV, on national television, like we're doing like pickup basketball playground style like who gets picked last or first on TV and everyone's
yeah.
watching it at home. Like that's kind of embarrassing if if you're an all-star and then kind of like putting in this idea of hierarchy and competition within that live. I think it kind of harkens back to this initial idea of like take pride in the game. And that's one thing that we have never seen in recent years, I should say. Because back in the day, it used to be like that. People used to say like, we're the best players in the world. We go here to play basketball, and
Yeah.
we take pride in this game, and you saw that level of competition. And then recently, this has been like basically like Las Vegas or just Hollywood. It's a
It's an
show.
exhibition. Yeah, it's just
Yeah, it's so now I think they're trying to go, okay, let's go back from entertainment value and like a production. This is no longer a production. This isn't like, Cirque du Soleil. Like this is like a competition. And I think they're trying their hardest to get back to that, their
yeah.
roots.
I get that. It's just nobody's going to defend. Nobody, so it's still going to
Yeah,
be.
and that's what I'm saying. It's just like, and
We
that's what's so
bounce past
difficult.
lobs and yeah. Hey, can I? How many alley oops off the backboard can you have in one game? Like it's
Yeah.
going to be one of those. So.
Yeah, it's like Harlem Globetrotters. And I think that there's like an element, like I said, they want to get back to like take pride in the game, take pride in like competition.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
because like I mean, when I go to the All-Star game and stuff, the two best events, in my personal opinion, recently I would say second is kind of tied. But number one by far is the Legends Brunch Sunday morning. Then the number two one, in my personal opinion, is split between the Tech Summit, which is really interesting and always great,
yeah, that's actually
and
fascinating.
and then the 3-point contest. But then outside of that, like the rest of the All-Star weekend, I kind of just stay in my hotel, like eat food and talk to my dad, right? So like it's just not really. But so you
It,
actually a lot of times you leave after the Legends Brunch. You don't even go to the game because it's not that interesting. So I do think they're trying to make the All-Star game the crown jewel, like a reason to watch and a reason to stay the whole
yeah.
weekend. But who knows? What's your favorite part of the weekend?
Actually, yeah, the Tech Summit's always fascinating. It is I don't think people understand the circus that goes around this. Every shoe company, vaguely affiliated beverage company, there's events and things going on all weekend, all over whatever city you're in. It'll be in Salt Lake this year in February. So it is a huge party that goes on for 3 days. But I've heard the Legend Brunch is great. The Tech Summit is fascinating. It is really the thing. And I always look. I'm always the fun part of this is that there are a lot of other players that sometimes go that weekend, and sometimes as a media member, you can actually get. It's hard because there's a lot of media there. Everybody's there, but sometimes you can get little nuggets away from everything that'll be interesting. You can get guys or some guys just who aren't there that honest, just feel like being honest that day as opposed to their usual kind of guarded self. So you're looking for that. And then on the court, the 3-point contest has become my favorite thing because that's the one the stars show up to defend, like Curry and Klay Thompson and Joe Harris and name all your best shooters in the league go out and play. Like they take part in this, and that makes it's not like the dunk contest where the best players aren't part of it. It's like that. I think on the court, the 3-point contest is the most fun part.
So this All-Star game, I know you wrote. What give me an idea of you're starting.
So yeah, I'm one of the media members with a vote to balance out so that Zaza Pachulia doesn't become a starter. I'll leave you though. I'm going to ask you, Corey, the question that everybody I know who had a vote generally struggled with, because normally this is like whatever kind. I don't want to say whatever kind of vote, but like, all right, I didn't vote this guy in, but I did vote this guy in, but the other guy's going to make, guy A is still going to make it as an all-star. And that's the case here. But Corey, you get 3 front court spots in the East. Who do you leave out? Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kevin Durant, Joel Embiid, or Jason Tatum, because one of them comes off the bench.
Jason Tatum's in. Yeah, I think I would reverse it. I would say, well, Jason's one for sure. Giannis is one for sure. And then it comes down to Embiid or Durant. And I think at that point, I mean, that's very hard. I know that's really hard. I mean, I think, let me just double check how many games Durant has played.
Durant has missed a bunch. He is hoping, I'm not sure what the number is now. He said yesterday that he hopes to return in time to play for the game, like he wants to. And look, Durant's a hooper. It's not a surprise that he wants to be back, and like he likes to compete. So
yeah, he's played in 39 games this year. He's having, I mean, this is tough. I think I would go Embiid, but the thing about this is that when you think about starters, like KD has been the captain the past two years back to back. Like it's you can't have that kind of precipitous fall from back to back captain. And even he was still captain when he was injured. Remember that? Like he wasn't even playing, he was still voting.
If he gets whoever gets the most fan votes is the captain, even if you don't play. So LeBron.
So maybe I would say Embiid. I mean, Embiid is. I mean, I know Embiid has played actually less. Wow, Embiid has played only 34 games.
Yeah.
Versus KD's 39, but I mean he's putting up 33 and 9.
It's just ridiculous.
I gotta say Joel. Who did you say?
I'd move Joel to the second unit, but just based on games played, not anything else. And whatever, when it gets announced, I'm like, there wasn't a wrong answer. Here is one of those things where you're like,
there's no wrong answer there.
There's no wrong answer. Whatever. I moved Joel to the second unit, along with my reserves. My 7 reserves that I picked were Joel Embiid, because he didn't start. The other 2 front court guys, Pascal Siakam and a semi-controversial Jimmy Butler, who hasn't played a ton, but he played really well when he's played. Jaylen Brown's got to be in for me. Kyrie Irving's been good enough to make it, like he's just played too well not to be there. James Harden has played too well not to be there. And that leaves a brutal last spot where it's Bam Adebayo, DeMar DeRozan, Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson, Drew Holiday. Like it's hard. It's hard to make that pick. I went with Adebayo. He's been playing better lately. He's a more of a two-way guy, but Julius Randle's put up 36. He's been playing great ball lately. DeMar DeRozan has a really good case. Like there's no bad answer here. So we'll see what, remember the fans / media / fans get 50% of the vote and the tiebreaker for starters, and then the media and players vote as well. But the reserves are all chosen by a vote of the coaches, which is always interesting because I know that there's some coaches who sit down with their staff like in the back of a plane and hash it out. And then there's times that just falls to some back. It rolls down the hill until it can't roll anymore and lands on a backbench assistant you're doing it.
Yeah.
So we'll see. It lands in different places. It'll depending on the club. So I had snubbed DeRozan and the 2 Knicks, much to the dismay of our producers.
Yeah, Joe probably did not like that.
Joe did not like that. And I think it's a valid point. Like, but that's where I left it in the East. I think Adebayo and Butler, you can make a case. Both of them don't deserve to be there. So,
yeah. What do you think about, you mentioned the voting system, and we're also talking fan vote, 50%, 25% media, 25% players, as far as like the stars are concerned. What do you think about this fan voting system?
It's an exhibition. Like I'm pretty comfortable with the fan vote, except I understand why the league is, they changed it this year because last year Wiggins was a starter, in part because he's a Warrior and he gets a lot of votes and because he's good. And in part because K-pop star Bam Bam tweeted out, hey, that he wanted Wiggins to be a follower, and his 8 trillion Twitter followers tweeted it out, and those all counted as votes. So you can't vote on social media this year. You actually have to go through the NBA app, or you have to go to NBA.com. You can't just hashtag somebody on social media and vote like you could in years past. And just to limit the those kind of things. But to me, it's a fan vote. So like, hey, I mean, I get that they don't want, there would be fan collusion to put people in who maybe don't deserve it. But on the flip side, yeah, whatever. Like I don't.
I'm kind of like, I mean, I understand that the NBA wants to engage fans. That's the whole point of All-Star Weekend is, to bring the fans into the family.
Internationally, not just here. Yeah.
Yeah, internationally. I understand that. However, I do think there are times, especially if the NBA is trying this hard, where every year there's a wrinkle. And not just a wrinkle, but like, we're going to change the scoring system. We're going to do target. Like, we're going to change like how we do the draft. Like, it's like, and televise it. Like, we're not talking like small wrinkles, like, oh, this rule's changed. We're talking about like massive fundamental changes, like just trying to understand like the impact of this game. I think they should just go back to an old tried and true method. And that is like, look, just pick the players yourself. I think the league should just pick the players and say, look, like, we know, as far as who are our stars. And they do this on Christmas Day, right?
Yeah.
And Christmas Day is successful as an entity of Christmas Day games. Like, who your stars are, who you're building the league around in the future, and who, gets you all your money now. And like so I understand it, like you want to do that, but I would just say let the league pick all the all-stars and then for the all-star game and just say, okay, now you guys go play. I think that would invigorate the game itself, because it's not just like, because right now one of the biggest issues is it's not even interesting and the fans are voting half of the people in, and it's still not that interesting. So, and my point is that like you should just go back to the league taking full control over it just for maybe 1 year and just kind of see what that looks like and see what happens.
What's the flag football version of the All-Star game that we can
half
do?
Court, just all half court. Half court, no transition, no fast breaks, just play half court. That might be interesting too, because like I don't know if you've seen the 3x3, like the games. They're fast, they're physical. That might be a fascinating.
That might be fun. And, well, the NHL is sort of doing something like that, aren't they? Aren't there all-stars? They're doing like 4 teams of 4 or something, and doing these smaller, hold the court kind of games, I believe. So like maybe you evolve it that way.
Yeah, King of the Court. Wow, could you imagine the
3x3 King of the Court? So there we go. By the way, my West, we should run through this since we did the East. Fans are voting in Curry and Doncic as starters. Yeah, that's who I voted for. Like they're the 2 best guards. But the West is so deep with guards. That's where it gets tricky. But Curry and Doncic deserve to start. Jokic is a given. LeBron has earned not only a fan vote, but frankly, just with his play, is more than earned a spot. That last spot, did Zion play enough? Did Zion and Anthony Davis have been better than everybody else when they've played, but it's been a limited number of minutes? Or do you go to Sabonis, who's I think the next best guy, playing all the time for maybe the best story in the league in the Sacramento Kings, putting up numbers, but his highs aren't as high as Zion. So I voted Zion because ultimately, again, fan game, who do I want to see play? He played a little over 60% of his team's games when I had to vote. So I put him in as a starter, but if you want to say it should be Sabonis or even Davis, fine. I don't know. Who would you go with of that group?
Sabonis. But I do understand what you're saying. As far as the league's concerned, you got to have Zion there, I think.
Zion and Davis have to be reserves, right?
Yeah, they have to. I mean, they have to be part of this game. And then I do think Zion's played 29 games. I just looked it up, and he's out again. So it is. He
might not be in he might not play just because his hamstring is. I mean, they're saying 2 weeks. At that point, they get Ingram back tonight. They get on Wednesday night. If you can keep your head above water, do you let Zion rest through the All-Star break and then bring him back?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And so I understand like the concerns there, but I would say the thing that I do love about All-Star is that even one All-Star selection could change, your legacy as a player, right? I mean, and to think about these moments where, okay, yeah, we know Zion's going to get like 10 All-Stars. Like he's, what I'm saying? Like he's like, if he plays 15 years, 20 years, he's going to get like double-digit All-Stars, selections. But like, how many All-Star selections will Sabonis get in his career? 2, 3.
He's got
like
2. He's got 2 from.
Yeah, he's got 2 over. So my point is that like in these kind of moments where like Julius Randle, when he got his All-Star, like I do think that is significant for one's legacy. Yeah. And if there are windows where other players, are injured or not playing as well, or not, sorry, not injured or not playing at the moment, and you have, gotten that spot, it's a nice one-off kind of thing. So I think personally, I'm like, okay, well, if Sabonis has earned it, Zion's going to get plenty more. I go Sabonis.
Yeah, that's fair. Look, whichever one of those three, the two of those three you don't put in that last spot end up as reserve. So I had Sabonis and Davis as reserve. Lauri Markkanen.
Yeah, he's been playing really well. This is another example.
Really well, has to be there to me. He's not starting, but he is absolutely reserve. Then they're just so deep with guards out west. I went with 4 reserve guards. Ja Morant, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who frankly could start the way he's played. Devin Booker, who's missed a lot of time, but he's too good to leave off. And Damian Lillard, who's under the radar, been really good this year. Like Damian Lillard's played really good basketball. Portland's not good. And if that's my 5, then your snubs are De'Aaron Fox, who has played really well for the Kings. Paul George, who, everybody's like, how much has he played? Paul George has played more than you think, and he's played really well. Aaron Gordon.
Yeah, I mean, I think he deserves a shot there. I mean, he's been playing extremely well.
So those are my snubs, but Fox, George, Gordon. If you're a Jaren Jackson Jr. guy or you want to make some other cases, there's some people out there. So Fox is the one I feel bad about. Like I don't know. Not that I'm rooting for an injury for anyone, but like if he got bumped up, that would probably be deserving.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. But for the Kings to have 2 All-Star,
yeah, do they need 2?
That's a lot. I mean, especially So
they are 3rd in the West right now, but yeah,
that's true.
They are. And we haven't talked about them enough, frankly. In some ways on this, they have been maybe the most entertaining story.
No, you're right. If they can keep it up, I'm interested to see if they can keep it up. But right now, they've been very good. They've been consistent. But we know that post All-Star is that's where you really test the metal. Post All-Star is like, remember when there was a time when the Chicago Bulls, remember when Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan were like the 2 Bulls averaging over 25 points a game, 2 Bulls since Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen doing that. Bulls were right 1-2 in the Eastern Conference. We're like, this Bulls team is really good. Then post All-Star break, just like precipitous fall, So like I know it's possible. I've seen it happen before. I've lived long enough and watched enough basketball where I don't trust anything pre-All-Star. Like you got to prove it to me post-All-Star. So when the Kings prove it to me post-All-Star, then we can talk about them more.
Fair enough.
But then again, I don't decide to run down standards. So now the last part of the show is always the fun segment. So we're doing the Mad Lib again. I'm curious to see what you thought about this biopic because you have all of the Oscar nominations coming out, and Elvis is nominated for Best Picture. Austin Butler, I think, also for Best Actor, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So if you had a biopic, who would you want portraying you? And then also on the flip side, if you don't want to do that, if you were asked to portray someone in biopic, like who would you want? Who would you want to do?
I will tell you now that I've already had this conversation with my wife because so much of the stuff is available on streaming now. Plus, when your brother is an executive at Fandango, you get to see movies. The week after All-Star, when there are no NBA games, like that dead period, we're cramming in the movies that, like, I don't have time to watch a lot of during the season. It's hard to hey, let's carve out Saturday night. Oh shoot, there's a game tonight I should be watching. Like, it's hard to carve out time to watch everything all together all at once, and some of the stuff I haven't seen yet. So anyway, I'm excited. I'm really looking forward to that. But a biopic of me would suck. Like, that would just be boring as hell. It's almost it's not interesting. Dan, our producer, phrased it 2 ways. Like besides, who's playing me? Do you want the guy from Pawn Stars or something? It's not going to be that interesting. Like, I, on the other hand, am willing to lose weight and do whatever it takes, and then get a hair weave or something. If we're gonna play anybody in a movie, can I be Joe Strummer in a Clash biopic?
Wow,
that would be my dream.
Like a method actor. Wow. Okay, that's a good one. Wow. Okay. Wow.
If I get to pick anyone. Yeah, but now you actually have had an interesting life. So, like, who's playing you in your movie?
No, there won't be a movie. Definitely not. And
you start meeting a Kardashian, get your own series.
No, there's no movie coming out. But I think if I was an actor and I wanted to portray someone in a biopic, um, I wouldn't do anyone famous. I wouldn't do anyone really, like a world leader or like a Hall of Fame musician or actor or whatever. Like, because recently I was studying a lot about this because, Maria Callas, I don't know if I'm saying her name like Callas,
Okay, yeah,
Maria, one of the best opera singers. Like, I think didn't Angelina Jolie, isn't she like chosen to present her? Natalie Portman did, Jackie
yeah,
Kennedy. So I mean, it's like these are like some really big projects. I think I would want to portray someone like really like like an ordinary person who was caught up in an extraordinary event, and then returned to an ordinary life. Isn't that like the whole like story of the Hobbit? Like, like just like an
basically,
ordinary
yeah,
person who like
basically, yeah,
stumbled upon a ring and then found like, this whole crazy thing and then wrote a book about it. Like I would like to portray someone like that and then who returned to anonymity. So like I don't know who that is. I didn't do any research, but that's kind of like the concept for me, like to just be
yeah,
like I think that because those to me like my favorite movies, are either like really boring, like interior studies of someone's life, like just a normal housewife living in Belgium, just kind of like what's her day look like, like that. Those are like my kind of favorite movies, just like random, like boring, tedious, like humanity playing out over 3 hours. But I do think that would be a really fun like story, just like yeah. So I would choose that story.
that's an interesting. Yeah, it's going to have to be a little different. You're going to stand out in the Shire. You're a little too tall for the actual Frodo kind of role, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe not the Shire. Maybe not the Shire. What was that poem's name? The Robert Burns. Maybe that, maybe like the
Go,
Scottish
go,
Haggard.
go Google some Robert Burns, try to read it, and then go, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know if I'd be able to pronounce half the lines the way you're describing it.
Yeah, by the way, I'm just going to tell you now that like a couple of glasses of whiskey does not help.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so Robert Burns is off the table. So, anyways, if you want more coverage of what Kurt and his team are doing, then why don't you go to NBCSports.com/NBA. Kurt, I'll see you next week, and I'm very excited. The more we get closer to February, you know what that means? All star, all star, all star. So I'm looking forward to it.